Everybody's feeling great. We're feeling good. We're in the middle of a
We
hearty
do.
conversation.
All it's all of that still. I think that Tua watching that Tua clip just kind of had it got serious all of a sudden. Like
Knock the
we
wind out
talking
of your
about
sail, boy.
Definitely like, dang, man, that did my boy.
we talking about concussions,
I mean,
all of
and
that.
now they got what, a minute and 52 seconds for what's done is done, and so that's I think what's scary is. Oh yeah, the Bengals just scored again, so it's all she wrote.
They
The
needed
score is
that.
now 26-15. About to be 27.
They needed that. Hey, but what's up? As y'all come on in, make sure y'all tell us where y'all from. Where y'all, all of that. Where y'all tuning in from? Y'all notice that late night conversation. We ain't worried about no Jimmy Kimmel. We ain't worried about no what's the other white boy name?
Kimmel now.
And
Jimmy
another
Fallon.
Jimmy. Yeah, I was like, it's another Jimmy.
Thank y'all for tuning into the Chop Up. Now, if y'all know anybody that typically watches us on YouTube or on Facebook, we are now solely broadcasting on YouTube. You feel me? So y'all tell them to come over this way. Y'all tell all of them to come over.
Y'all use your manners. If you in here, say what's up. Announce yourself, where you're from. Do something with yourself before we get the show started. King Kivo, Sioux City, Iowa in the building. That's Iowa? Yeah, I think so.
Oh yeah, I think we've debated there. I feel like
I believe so. That's why I was like, I've been in that city before.
Exactly.
What happened?
Hey, but let's go ahead and do this.
Let's do it.
In the city, we gon' slide, bet I be there pronto. Me, my guys, we really live. Lord forgive me, pay my tithes. Please don't have me reach inside. And that's in the console. Keep the semi when I ride. Lit off Henny when I drive. In the city, we gon' slide. Bet I be there pronto.
What's going on, people? It's the Chop Up Show. You know what's going on. It's your girl, Toya G. It's another Thursday. We checking in with everybody in the chat. So as you come in, say what's up. Tell us where you from. If you listening to us on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, we about to get on Amazon Music real quick. I don't even know that was coming, but it's coming. Shout out to y'all for being loyal, staying tapped in, being listeners week after week. Join us for a live show. You know, we go live every Thursday night, 7:30 p.m. Pacific, really closer to 8. This is closer to 8 Pacific. Right. And then typically we try to be 9:30, 9:45, 9:50 Central. So y'all check in with us and see what's good. But I'm not by myself. I'm with the homies, with the gang. Who else I'm with?
The boy Dahmer, the political plug, here again. I love this show. I love y'all. I love pulling up. I'm ready to get it in.
Yeah.
Yes, man. George Lee, aka Consciously. Don't forget the Lee. We got, consciously.com. A lot of things on there you can go check out. Got some new updates coming to the website. Looking forward to this conversation today, too.
Yeah, I'm excited too. I think the theme of tonight's conversation in a couple different contexts is wokeness and what that means and how far it takes us. I think as we are talking about entertainment, as we're talking about media, as we're talking about politics, like what does that mean? What does that look like? And how do we kind of recreate that? Or is it worth recreating? Is it something we want to hold on to? I want to start the conversation with the vibe check. Got a couple of things I want to talk to y'all about before we turn it over to the squad to take it a little bit further. First thing is alert. I know you saw the picture on Instagram of the tattooed hand holding the football, and you can't really see the person it's connected to. But if you know anything, the NFL has announced that Rihanna will be doing the halftime show for the Super Bowl coming to you this February 2023.
Shout out to the Navy. Oh, is it Blue Navy baby game? The Navy game.
The Rihanna Navy is what I knew them to be. Just the Rihanna Navy is. I don't want to get them wrong. Don't let them come for us. Respect.
Oh yeah. No, I want no smoke with the Navy. You know what I'm saying? With the Rihanna Navy at all.
With the Navy, yeah.
Okay. I mean, so we're excited about that. I think this is interesting given last year's show. Huh?
Are we?
We'll get there, right? I think in the spirit of last year's show. So y'all remember last year's show? It was black as hell, right? And we're kind of seeing a trend now. I think this is what people call a pattern, where we see things start to happen in repetitive fashion. And so one of the things we saw last year was a very black ass halftime show. West Coast was represented, right? Whole kind of LA skyline. Who all performed? Do y'all remember? I know it was
Dre, 50, Mary J. Blige, Eminem, and Snoop Dogg.
Yeah, and I feel was one more person. Was Roddy Ricch up there?
No, what it was Anderson .Paak was playing drums for Dr. Dre.
That's what it was. Okay, I knew it was an extra person out there popping in. And oh yeah, by the way, shout out to Miami, Florida in the building. India, what's going on with you from Tennessee? Definitely got big love for y'all. Chris in the comments said I'm gonna be the nerd yesterday. You know, we do other things, but Kendrick Lamar, that's who it was. Maximum
Kendrick, yeah.
Thank you for that. Thank you. So we had a very black representation of presence at the Super Bowl halftime. Now this news also broke after hearing that Taylor Swift was supposed to be the headliner, right? Which begs the question of what kind of Jay-Z is doing behind the curtains, right? We've been critical of the NFL's relationship with black people. We've been critical of Jay-Z and his influence on NFL because you made all this noise about how relationships and patience and building bridges and shit was important in forging a relationship with the NFL. And so now we kind of started to see some of this, right? Let's not forget though that Rihanna was on Team Cap at once upon a time, right? Was definitely riding with Colin Kaepernick, was definitely outspoken in her criticisms of the NFL.
Can't forget.
Huh? You said what plug?
Can't forget.
Yeah,
you can't
right?
forget.
And so, long story short, my question to y'all is she faking? Is she a sellout? Is this a common example of the money kind of being able to get people to abandon what they believe in, abandon their convictions, abandon their activism, and kind of get on board? And should we be critical of her performance because of this? Which I
think this is inadvertently. This actually becomes kind of like a carryover from the last time we talked about Rihanna.
Okay.
In the conversation of capitalism, right? And you know, about how Jay-Z get a lot of slack, but Rihanna don't, right? I think this is one of those instances where I don't think she's gonna get a pass with this. I think a lot of people are bringing up the fact that like, this is interesting. You stood with Colin Kaepernick against the NFL, but when that bag show up, it's, you know, the NFL put the National Fenty League. Right,
I didn't see that. Interesting.
Yeah, on their Instagram, on the NFL Instagram, they changed it
National
to
Fenty
League. And then we changed the F football.
And so I think here again though, this is where we got to understand the type of people we're dealing with. This is why we shouldn't care that Rihanna stood with
well, hold on. And I missed Maximum Tata. I missed you. You've been out of our life a little bit, but you came back bringing heat because I think you have a great point that we need to talk about real quick before we move to our next topic. And it is that Maximum Tata says, I think at this point, performing at the Super Bowl is a protest in and of itself. So is that how we need to understand this? Has the paradigm shifted? The mission stayed the same, but how we get there different to where a proliferation, an expansion of black presence on these shows is what's really sticking it to them? Or is that cap? Like, no pun intended.
Yeah, I'm gonna say this, and then Lee got it. I'm protesting work by going into work. I'm protesting how we treated at the job by clocking in.
Okay. Okay. So that's one perspective of a valid one. Lee, what you think?
I think what Tata was getting into is how a lot of the black performances then halftime pisses off a lot of white people. But I think that can't be the bright line based off of, I feel like, you know what I'm saying, whether it's a protest, like if it pisses off white people. I think that, you know, ultimately white people benefit the most in many instances in terms of financially how those performances take place. For me, I think that like Jay-Z setting it up. You know what I'm saying? And shit, to me, it's like shit. If we celebrated last year, you feel me, Super Bowl for being so black, it's like I don't see why we wouldn't this year. If you know what I'm saying, Rihanna headlining it. You know what I mean?
I think Will the Greatest threw out something interesting. Y'all really got me thinking now because Will the Greatest said it'd be wild if she donated some of the proceeds to a charity related to Kaepernick and did it openly, right? I think now that is some next level, and it speaks to, and the plug is shaking his head, but let me tell you what I think it allows for us to do is to recognize kind of some of the necessary I think, strategery beyond just protesting something. The NFL already showed us niggas can protest the game. They could be mad about it. And the league kept going. Did nothing about the NFL stop them a couple of seasons where everybody was angry about the NFL and threatening to protest and stuff like that. Nothing changed. We saw the Brian Flores and the whole conversations about the league being actively anti-black and not hiring coaches. And nothing changed. And so I think in a world where we see time and time again, in the face of necessary activism, niggas are still gonna patronize some things, that people still gonna do stuff. It's about really getting in there and being strategic about how you end up maybe participating in things. So instead of just the regular old protest them, don't show up, don't perform, stick it to you like that, maybe I take the money and flip it. I think that's a realistic kind of strategy. Plug, you shaking your head. What's the problem?
George, do you agree? Do you agree? I before I speak on it, I want the full panel perspective. Because maybe George can explain it in a way that, you know what I mean, because with Toya saying, I'm like, Victoria usually get to me, but I'm like, So maybe George maybe you can explain it in a way.
Don't speak your piece. I'm curious to just speak your piece.
Yeah, see, none of that. First of all, Rihanna's a billionaire. Okay, she could own an NFL team if she wanted to. There are no bags to flip with the NFL, right? This is one of them things to where what would have been more productive, the counter hegemonic thing to do, is to turn it down. Rihanna don't need that money.
Because but then they just fill in the space with another white person who don't need that money and gets the attention and gets the platform.
That's fine though, but Rihanna gets to stand attached to a principle that's already been undermined heavily. The Colin Kaepernick principle has been undermined heavily. The Nike checks, the movies, the Netflix deals, all of all of this shit that's been associated with it is the worst. It's the worst forms of neoliberalism. It's the worst forms of it. It's the feel-good neoliberalism. The spend money to make us smile neoliberalism. But what's more important and what we need specifically nowadays is that principle. We need to see principle. And consistently, time and time again, principle is undermined.
If you're trying to build a dam by throwing pebbles in the water, then what are we really doing here? Right? Like if you're trying to stop the water from flowing, but you like, I'm gonna throw this pebble in there, and by throw this pebble, I mean yank one Rihanna out of it, but ain't no other celebrities doing this, ain't no other movements. Like it's just Rihanna didn't perform it. Like, what does that do? I think is the question that we're trying to resolve and figure out. So, like, I'm not saying that her, taking the money or not taking the money changes necessarily anything. I just question this idea that the principle of not showing up there is really all that material and palpable in a way that's like really sticking it to them the way we want to think it is. I don't know. I have a question for Fire Trainer. Comment in the chat and follow up with us. When you say donating money isn't really that systemically viable, what do you mean by that? Like, do you mean that it's not really going to do anything? Do you mean that donating money is just kind of going to be a Band-Aid over a bigger issue? Like, what do you mean by that? Let's see. You followed up by saying it's just capitalism to excuse blatant racism. I can see that.
That's what he's saying. Donating money is, yeah.
Got you. I got you. I see it. That makes a lot of sense to me.
I'll say this and I'll pass it to Lee real quick.
I know the uniqueness of it though, and I guess this isn't a pass for her to, I guess, go on there. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. But I do know she has been turning Super Bowl down, halftime down uniquely for a long time. But I feel like we keeping the same energy with being critical of her and still thinking about the impact structurally for the NFL and what that means. It's like shit. Yeah, on one end, it's like, yeah, you should have said middle finger to the NFL, but the other end, they was gonna find another nigga that was gonna take it. Because it's still gonna be black, probably. They was just get another nigga
that was gonna call. Well, no,
but I don't think
he's too new. Go ahead.
You're right. But I don't think it's about sticking it to the. I don't think it's about sticking it to the NFL at this point, because the NFL is a monster that's gonna move through. You know what I'm saying? All this other shit, regardless. Like all three of us are staunch NFL. You know what I'm saying? Like we watch games. Mm-hmm. Like, we are fans, even though we have these.
Had the game a second ago.
Even though we have these overall criticisms, so I think that the NFL benefits from cognitive dissonance, like the sports teams, period, like that industry benefits from cognitive dissonance the most. And I think that Rihanna kind of standing on that principle would have been more productive for the Colin Kaepernick movement, though, because I think Rihanna may have been like the last holdout for the Kaepernick movement in terms of
celebrity.
Exactly, not being undermined by whatever corporation. Because I think Colin Kaepernick has been undermined than a mug, but by the way that he was martyred. You know what I mean? Like given the circumstances, you feel me? So that's another conversation though.
Final thoughts for our transition over to the next part of the snap to the vibe check. Cool. What I want to do real quick is shout out to Sauce on the Side. I want to say what's up to Tiffany. Want to say what's up to Miss Maisha. All y'all in here and then slid in on the conversation was good. And the last thing, I'll give the last word to Fire Trainer 92, who says celebrities can't really be the face of the movement. And we've had conversations about this before on the Chop Up about, and who was the activist? Was it Malcolm X who criticized the fact, or was it Muhammad Ali? No, it had to be Malcolm X that criticized the idea that our entertainers are the liberators for our movements in the Black community. Criticize the idea that the people who get up and sing our songs and play our sports are the ones who are expected to also lead the new horizons of what liberty and what equality look like. And so that's a question that we'll probably come back to in a different context, surely in a later conversation, because we're always negotiating if the LeBrons, if the pick some other people who like to speak out about certain things, the Kyries, a lot of different people, if they're the people we need to be ambassadors for our perspectives.
Kyrie Irving should be the leader of the movement, obviously.
Kyrie should be the face, goddammit.
The earth is flat.
Any movement that Kyrie is the face of, I'm a part of it.
Thank you. And speaking of, now that you booed and we can move on from that, this is the last thing I want to tap in with y'all about. How many in the comments y'all let me know, and then y'all let me know, have y'all checked out this Jeffrey Dahmer, Dahmer movie on Netflix? It's been out. It's been circulating on a lot of my Twitter feed, my Instagram feed. A lot of people been talking about it. Have y'all watched it? Have y'all tapped into it? The plug says no.
I didn't watch it, and I don't plan on watching it. You know what I'm saying?
Can I ask why you don't plan on watching it?
I feel like usually I don't try to be on shit like this, but I really see the film as monetization of Black suffering. I really see the film as straight up as that. Me being on Twitter the way I'm able to be on Twitter, I've been able to read the tweets of the family members of Jeffrey Dahmer's victims. You know what I'm saying? And it's just really able to peep game, like the girl saying, I had to relive. Now I had to relive it. That was me. They just had my clothes. They said the exact words I said. You know what I'm saying? And it's really just like how much the story needs to be told. And when you think about it from a critical level, you feel me? It's like we keep on humanizing white serial killers at the expense of Black humanity, and just keep on going with it. It's like this story has been told like 10 times. So
let me ask this question though, because you just talked about humanization. And I think, we can look at that a couple different ways, because you humanize them in terms of giving them a personality, showing them as people who are attempting to live a regular life, but are dealing with these inner demons or whatever. But I think, does it not, that humanization not also like just show you that it could be anybody? Like to me, when they humanize those characters, it just made me walk out my front door and look at my neighbors a whole lot more sideways. Like you could be on some bullshit. And now that I see that I'm not deifying or mystifying serial killers, but rather I recognize it can be the regular old Joe Schmo. It kind of makes me just be on the edge of my seat a little bit more. So am I giving it too much credit, or
I think
not really.
I think giving other people too much credit.
I think it's more on point though, because we talking about humanizing a real person. The nigga was real.
Like that's
Jeffrey Dahmer, like it'll be one thing if it was like, how niggas treated Killmonger in Black Panther, right? Like how it was like, he was the one that was for us. The nigga was, fucking up the culture. Like, what are we talking? Like, it was all these issues that was wrong with it, right? But we talking about somebody that was a human. So if anything, what it speaks to and what it displays is the capacity of mankind, right? Like the type of shit that people get into. And what we got to remember is when we're sitting and we're watching these, Netflix shows about white people murdering other white people, we can't assume that like our trauma is now off, off limits. Yeah. Like we applaud. Like, girl, did you watch that? What such and such Netflix show about that crazy ass? You know what I'm saying? We say that about them doing that to their own shit. You feel me? So it's like when it turned around and like with Jeffrey Dahmer had black victims and all of that, right? But at the same time, there's been plenty of movies about John Wayne Gacy, pedophile murderer. Right.
And that's, Maximum Tata kind of points at this. They say it's very annoying. And I believe you identified as a she in the last show. So she said it's very annoying that they keep making movies about the same 2 serial killers every 15 to 20 years. So
Jeffrey Dahmer and Ted Bundy.
Yeah. Every now and again we get some Zodiac killer in there, but yeah, it's a lot of them. And so I guess. So my question, because so which one is worse? Let me ask this question, and y'all ask this question to the chat, and then I want to go to some of the comments that y'all dropping.
Like, man, romanticizing this dude. This man got people talking about him being cute and literally making excuses for.
So this is what I want to get to, right? Because I think,
like, nah, this is weird.
What is worse? And this is what I want to ask. What's worse? Having these images that kind of humanize and tell the story and expose some of the details that we may or may not be aware of, or releasing it into a popular culture that don't seem to take shit serious, right? Like, because I don't think that the Dahmer story or any of these stories are ever released with like because that was just that was literally a part of like his story, and kind of, as things developed, people saw him and found him attractive and shit like that. But I don't think they ever introduced it for a new generation of people to be like, oh yeah, Dahmer was really hot, or even make memes. So like the glasses that he wore, I seen a meme that was like, these are the serial killer glasses. These must be like, why are we laughing and joking about these things? I've seen skits with people being like, I know Dahmer would have got me. Like, you know what I'm saying? Just crazy. Like, I think that is where I'm more concerned, is less on the creators of these stories and these representations, and more on a society and a culture that just don't take shit serious. That is troubling to me. What y'all think?
So 2 things, right? The first thing is a part of the reason why I don't watch the the dramatization of these types of shit is because, oddly enough, for some reason, I had in my house, there was all type of like crime books. Like there was like an encyclopedia of crime. There was this FBI CIA book that just was in my house, and I ended up reading all of these shits.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was a lot of this stuff I knew. You know what I'm saying? Like I knew about for like just a long time, knowing the details. I watched crime documentaries. All of this shit is just things that I'm like, that I would be low key interested in. Son of Sam, all of that type of shit, right? What you notice with that is, even while these things are taking place, serial killers typically develop fans. They get, while they're in jail, they get fan mail, right? They have like literally websites and groups dedicated to like worshiping like these serial killers. And so when like a part of like our culture already, without the Netflix shit, just them existing, them doing it for real, they get supporters like that anyway. Like that's just the way celebrity culture is perverted in that way. It's just kind of it's the nature of the beast, I want to say, right?
Mm-hmm.
The flip side to that is a lot of these things actually, this is where pop culture defines like society. The phrase "don't drink the Kool-Aid"
comes from
that's a little bit for this one.
Yeah,
you said what? Yeah, that comes from like the Jonestown. The Jonestown and the Jonestown massacre. And so what ends up happening is, when these things are put in our media and broadcasted and like literally tied to like our popular culture, right? Our media culture, it inevitably becomes a part of like our society. Like the story of Jeffrey Dahmer is a American story, right? Like when you talk about like crime in America is, it like literally a part of our pop culture. The same, I mean, because we talking about like serial killers, but people look at us and be like, y'all just listen to gangbangers talk about killing each other, and that's okay, right? So
I think the uniqueness I'm coming at it from is this: the Netflix documentaries and Netflix shows I've seen that involve people, real stories. The people that's involved with those stories are some way, in some type of way, giving consent to part of those stories. They're part of telling the story. You see what I'm saying? When I'm talking about the shit that's going on in Utah, and I seen the crazy, you feel me, Mormon shit going on, them people consented to giving their story. You feel what I'm saying? When I'm watching shit, the other, you know what I'm saying, shit or whatever, you feel me? But even some of them, they had people that's part of it. If it's Jeffrey Dahmer, they had nobody a part of it is a part of that. So about the uniqueness of Black gay people and how literally you didn't give shit to him. And then even in this story, the last victim was named Tracy Edwards. I've watched Tracy Edwards testify. I watched his actual testimony. You feel me? He the one that survived. He the one that was able to make it blew the house out this shit, right? Tracy Edwards died a life of PTSD on drugs and going through a whole bunch of shit, right? Never recovered. Fam, Tracy Edwards' family should be getting some type of proceeds from the top 10 documentary in the country right now. So for me, it's really thinking about you telling somebody a story. You literally are monetizing Black death. You are a corporation that
absolutely
just voluntarily said, I want to tell you this particular story. And then even going to it in terms of the influence, a lot of people that's really just in this fantasizing with this Jeffrey Dahmer shit is some of the same people that talk shit about the P-Valley shit because it's too gay. P-Valley too gay, y'all, this, that, and the other. You just sat through and powered through a whole documentary of a white man that is abusing, eating gay.
Yeah, it's a dramatization.
So, you eating them, killing them, having sex with them. It's like, what? How can you have the same shit about this? But to me, it's just a whole bunch of tomfoolery to me that surrounds the whole Jeffrey Dahmer shit to me.
Yeah. A lot of action going on in the comments. I almost can't even keep up, but y'all are having some solid like reflections and conversations. Miss Maisha, for example, said, I can't bring myself to watch Dahmer, but I find it interesting how so many cishead woke MFs are talking about it, but escaping over the fact that his victims were mainly gay Black men. I want to highlight that point because in talking about this, I want to, interweave it with some interesting news about Dahmer.
And I think Gucci coming tomorrow, it's gonna be about that too. Like that comment.
Well,
like,
I'm getting there. Before we get there, one thing I want to talk about though, in relationship to this comment, is in relation to the fact that these are gay Black men, is that there have been a lot of people protesting the LGBTQ tag on Netflix. So I think Netflix has removed it, or there might be plans to remove it. I need to check in on that. But a lot of people were like upset and have been upset and frustrated that this has been associated with like LGBTQ culture. Like that's not something they want to see or find when they look on their queue for LGBTQ movies or content. You know what I'm saying? And so I think it's very interesting in that same vein that, a lot of his victims were gay Black men, and that was very traumatizing for this community. And so a lot of queer people are saying those are not things that we want to celebrate or valorize in the content that's being introduced to us. Now I want to transition over into other parts of the commentary that's been happening, like what's going on with Boosie Boo, right? The Conscious Lee is gonna release some content tomorrow to get into this a little bit more. So y'all make sure y'all be on the lookout for what he gets into and talking about Boosie. But the short version is that Boosie got online earlier, and we don't have that clip. But like I said, y'all don't catch the clip when Lee releases stuff. Boosie basically got on and was like, "Nah, man, we got to get that shit off the screen now. Like we got him on here killing Black people. Of course, he didn't talk about the direct killing of gay people. He wasn't gonna say that. He wasn't gonna go that far. But he was like, we need to be protesting Netflix. We need to get this off the air. We don't need to be seeing or watching this type of imagery at all. So what is y'all's take? Because earlier it kind of alluded to the fact that we can see these representations as long as we're willing to pay the appropriate people for their trauma being re-narrated, reintroduced, rehashed out. Are y'all agreeing with that? Or are y'all agreeing with Boosie that we just need to get this shit out of here altogether and that we don't need to have these types of things on the air? What is y'all's ultimate take on what Boosie said?
See, I thought Boosie's ultimate take was as well, y'all should pay them people for that. Y'all Netflix need to pay them people. I thought that was a part of his shit as well, a part of his little rant as well.
Let's see. I'm gonna play the audio.
Yeah, I thought that was a part of his. I thought that was a part of his rant. Something about paying.
I'm gonna play the audio. But keep talking while I pull it up. What do y'all think? What do you think, Plug?
But yeah, that's my ultimate one. It's like paying them, and then no matter even if you do pay them, the criticism of monetizing Black stuff can go away.
Let's listen to Boosie real quick. Oh, what happened?
This is some sick shit.
This is funny.
The Jeffrey Dahmer movie. This is some sick shit. What he did to our race. This is some sick shit. We need to boycott this damn movie off Netflix. This is sick. This is sick. The victim family should be getting paid off every dollar Netflix made. This is fucking sick. We need to ban this Jeffrey Dahmer movie. This is some sick shit. It's sick.
End quote. From Terrence Hatch, Little Boosie.
Nigga,
So I mean,
do we agree with Boosie for once, or are we like he's kind of gassing it and we should move on?
okay, Jeffrey Dahmer is a sick motherfucker. What he did was sick, right? And like it, the outrage about the fact, like after people watched it, did y'all not know who Jeffrey Dahmer was? Like this was, we know Jeffrey Dahmer was a cannibal. We know this, right? So when the shit dropped, there should be no surprises. This is like being surprised about like slavery ending. Like, damn, that's how that shit happened. Like, no, motherfucker, we know like how it, like that's it's a sick story. But what baffles me about Boosie is like, bro, first of all, you don't even fuck with gay people like that. You know what I mean? And so it's like I think it's lost on you that you're talking about what's sick about what happened to these people, but like the way that you talk about this particular group and like kind of incites this type of that type of violence. It makes that type of violence.
That's the gotcha in it all. You know what I'm saying? And that's why I think the Miami boss was like his hypocrisy is super rich. But he's still correct about them getting removed, about getting it removed. And I think that's fair. Like your perspective, your perspectives are what incite these types of these types of reactions to queer folk, this type of violence. Like this is what feeds it. And now you outraged, but also you can't even say gay, right? Like these are not even like it's a weird, complex type of intuitive dissonance that he's clearly experiencing that is like interesting to see.
And that's why what's important to point out is that this proves that when people talk about, you know, the issue of gayness, that gay black people are still black people. So the circumstances of black people clearly still adhere to the circumstances of gay black people, right? But on the question of removal, it's like if you're gonna remove this, you got to remove every story of every Jeffrey Dahmer movie.
Yeah.
Every like if we say and remove this one, get rid of the Ted Bundy shit. Get rid of, you know what I mean, whatever. Netflix got all time. Have y'all seen? You say what?
I say, yeah, it should be definitely retroactive for sure.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. But I don't think that. But that's the point, though. There is no call to remove every story of Jeffrey Dahmer. Exactly. They're just saying, let's remove this one, because storytelling has gotten so good that it's hitting in a way that's making us uncomfortable. But this story is actually like how many years old? Like I said, the story of Jeffrey Dahmer is a part of the story of America.
And see, Lion Time, baby, this is where, I mean, and I've been seeing a lot of your comments and cracking up at them, by the way, too. No, I haven't watched this. But this is where I disagree, and this is why intersectionality is important. You're saying it has to do with being black and being black only, and I think that you can't say that because these people occupy multiple positions. If all of his victims were women, we will be talking about the fact that black women were being targeted by a serial killer. So we're not gonna do the don't say gay here. Like we have to be able to name and speak out and call out the intersections and the patterns that make this violence prolific. That does not undermine blackness. That does not undermine the fact. What it does do is allow for us to explore why he wasn't going around and chasing around white gay men, why he wasn't hanging around white gay clubs, kind of trying to capture white men and bring. There was a lot of different power dynamics that forced us to have bigger conversations about bigger shit. So clearly we disagree, and you called bullshit. I call bullshit back to you, back to you. Okay.
Hey, not only that, me watching his the interview, like the whole entire testimony of the guy, the black dude that got away, he was straight. A big part of the questioning was about if he was homosexual or not, because they know that Jeffrey Dahmer was homosexual and he was looking for, you know what I'm saying, black gay men, you know what I'm saying, basically, you feel me? So like the saying it was about being black and black only is false. Like Jeffrey Dahmer and him being like to calculate who his victims was, I would argue that it was he recognized the exposability of not only blackness but queerness. He going after black men sex workers, lying to them, telling them I'm gonna pay you $100 for a picture. It's 1991. You in Wisconsin. You live in the hood. You live in a predominantly black area, and you just so happen to be going after the queer men. Come on now.
It's not ironic. Well,
Queer erasure to me.
We've been sitting, and I'm gonna jump to Miss My Asia's comment. A couple other comments over here. Fire Trainer says, artistically, that's a hard line to just remove things. We need to be able to tell these stories without making them too much of a spectacle or exploitative. And I think that's where we have to walk fine lines, but also the onus is on the people who receive the media to not do the shit we're doing now, which is take it and make a mockery of it, joke about it, create memes about it, instead of having meaningful conversations about how predators like this are in our communities every damn day. Some of the responsibility is on us as consumers of this media. Miss Maisha says, I'm noticing how when white media outlets speak on Dahmer, they do so with love and reverence for that monster, very empathetic. And I think that's the slippery slope of humanizing these characters, is that then you have media outlets, right? People who are supposed to be filters of the information, who have a responsibility for how we're being shared that shit, gassing and hyping up and adding fuel to this whole he's so attractive kind of fire, and it gets weird. Now, this conversation has been far drawn, and we got a lot of other stuff to talk about. So, I'm gonna leave it in the hands of the plug. The plug is gonna leave his last comment, and then he will transition us into the next part of our conversation. How about that?
That's cool.
Right, so, yeah, you get the last one.
Yeah, that's what I'm about to say right now. So listen, I get how people feel about how white people are responding to Jeffrey Dahmer. We have to like that. It got to cut both ways, though. We can't be saying, "Oh my God, they're showing reverence to this crazy motherfucker Jeffrey Dahmer," but then be like, "Ex gangbanger that was legendary in the hood." Like, hey, let him out of, you know what I mean? Like, the logic got to cut both ways. You feel me? Like, we also revere our criminals. We speak about them in a loving, in a loving fashion. You know what I'm saying? Like, we look at what they do and the impact that they have on our neighborhoods, and we still like, damn, as long as we ain't one of their victims, we show them that same type of reverence. So I think that we got to remember that the society that we live in, crime is a part of our culture, and criminals, period, get kind of that type of reverence, you know, just based on their relationship to the culture.
Speaking of, and I know I said I was going to turn it over to you, but I want to say this real quick, completely unrelated to this. We've talked about Jeffrey Dahmer. We're going to put a pin in that conversation. Want to really quickly talk about the development in the PNB Rock case, because we're talking about crime, we're talking about criminals being revered, we're talking about cultures where we celebrate crime, and that's kind of what happened with the PNB Rock story. So if y'all haven't heard, PNB Rock, who was shot at a Roscoe's out here, a lot of speculation around social media about whether his girlfriend's post is what allowed for people to come to that Roscoe's, take his life because of his jewelry and this and that. We've now found out that a father and son duo are responsible for that murder, and that the mama might be involved in it too. The father's still on the run. The 17-year-old son.
They got caught in Vegas. They got caught in Vegas. The mama, they got caught in Vegas before.
Well, I know the mama and the son were in custody. The father was still on the move. So, are you sure the father has been taken into custody? Because I know they found the mother and the son.
In Vegas. Father got caught.
When did you read that?
Before we got.
Okay, then yeah, that sounds about right. Because the last time I checked that in on it was like this afternoon, early afternoon. So, families, fathers and sons, a culture of crime and of celebrating, you know, this type of behavior, being a nigga that spots somebody to make it like, it's weird, the decisions that we are starting to make between ourselves, for ourselves, and now we see that it's turning into a family business. It's probably not new, but it's just sad to see. So happy that at least the killers were found. I'm happy that we can kind of put a pin in that story, and happy that the baby mama or the mother of PNB Rock's children was vindicated, because a lot of hate came to that woman that she did not deserve. So I'll put a pin on my vibe check, and now honestly, I'm gonna turn it over to the plug.
Oh no, we getting into the conscious chop next.
There it is.
Yeah.
Let's go, Lee.
So getting into this conscious chop, you know, we have a lot of trivializing of the word woke. You know, we know that the word woke started in the Black community about, you know, political consciousness, about people being aware. And we know that by the time it's made it to white people, it's become a negative thing about already talking about respectability politics. There was a video that we came across, or that I came across. I thought we all had maybe seen it, but Kenya Burris, the producer, writer of Blackish, Grownish, and a whole bunch of other TV shows, Mixed-ish,
Girlfriend.
Girlfriends, Coming to America 2, a whole bunch of different stuff. You know what I'm saying? Talked about is wokeness ruining creativity. Damo, do we have the clip?
We got it.
And I wonder sometimes, Is wokeness ruining creativity in Hollywood?
100%. 100%. I loved the book Underground Railroad. Barry Jenkins is my boy. I think he's a genius. I think that for some people, it came off like trauma porn. You know what I'm saying? Some people weren't really looking. I think he did a beautiful job, you know what I'm saying? But I think that the woke police, especially the ones that are on the internet, you know what I'm saying? Like 10 people can sound like 10,000. You know what I'm saying? And it takes away the opportunity to sort of like let us grow. And I feel like we have to grow. We have to do different stuff. We have to sort of get opportunities to do things differently. And I feel like, and we also have to work together. We're so much stronger. We're finally in the place now where I can call and be like, MB, sure, let's do this. And we don't have to ask permission. You know what I'm saying? Between the three of us, we can just go do it and decide where we want to go. That's never in history been where we're at. Why are we not doing that more? You know what I'm saying? Why are we not taking that power and just going and doing our thing? Instead, we used to have to ask permission. These are conversations. These are calls. You know what I'm saying? So.
We heard it here first. Wokeness is tearing us up. It's drawing us out.
It's tearing us up. So before I even ask the question that Charlamagne posed, my first question is, can we separate Black people from the concept of wokeness, or are we always already tied to it?
I think we are always already tied to it because we have a standard of cultural competency. And we kind of move about with that. And I think we're being less shy about it. So because we're being less bashful about holding people accountable, about being ignorant, about doing ignorant shit, right? There's been a term coined to explain that dynamic. And then now I think it's going to follow us and chase us wherever we go, whenever we have some type of commentary or something to contribute about how common sense shit should be, right?
Yeah.
Like people wearing their hair the way that it grows out of their head. Oh, you're so woke. Oh, you like, yeah, because I want to be able to like simple shit, right? So I think that it's an inextricably linked relationship. Yeah,
I think it's so inextricably linked that the term itself suffers from the same consequences that everything else that Black people produce, and that is hyper commodification, to the point where the meaning in the term and how it's displayed and how it's used in popular culture is detached from how it was created. But that term is a Black term, period. Like there's no way around. It's like bling bling. White people didn't come up with that shit. You know what I'm saying? So, but just like everything else, they still use it in ways that kind of take away from, what made it significant. And so
absolutely
with woke specifically is one of them things where, like, for example, you got because Kenya Burris talking about the woke police, but if you look politically, Republicans are the woke police.
Come on.
Republicans are the ones who are, hey, these concepts, like, we're gonna call this woke and we're gonna criminalize it, like what Ron DeSantis does with woke math. Woke math. Come on, like,
stop
right.
woke that ass.
You know what I'm saying? And so it's like when we say it's linked to Black people, that link can't be denied, because again, that's us contributing to the popular culture as a whole. But in terms of how it's deployed and its meaning, ain't got shit to do with how we use it to understand that we are displaying consciousness. You're displaying a level that you're seeing above, like, how we're normalized to see shit. You know what I'm saying? So that's the conundrum of the hyper-commodification of Black culture.
Hey, and I think that's the weird thing. I think that I just come to thinking about it now from watching the clip again. It's like recognizing that you can't really separate wokeness from Blackness. Like, those two things are inextricably tied together. And then the end of the video, Kenya acknowledges that this is the first time in Hollywood history that Black people have the power to do whatever we want to do. He's done that while simultaneously evoking the woke police and saying that criticisms about trauma porn uniquely damn near are bad. The second question that I really want for us to be in terms of the discussion. So is wokeness ruining creativity in Hollywood? Yes or no? And can you give us examples to, suffice what you're talking about?
Floyd, what you think?
I think what it's doing is actually putting people in a position to be better, because when it's executed properly, there is no woke police. You want to know why, even though people tried to create an outrage about Robert Downey Jr. dressing up in blackface in Tropic Thunder, why it never became outrage? Because he executed that shit.
Yeah, it was successful. It was
The
successful.
purpose of that, like, even though, like, if you're offended, that's the point, right? Like, he's literally calling out like the ways in which people adopt these perspectives, these understandings, in an attempt to do what they call acting, right? So it demands that it be executed properly. You feel me? It ain't no more lazy nigga jokes or lazy black jokes.
Yeah, you just
White people do this. Black people do that. Like Chris Rock, nigga versus black person joke was lazy.
Yeah.
Period. You can't do that no more. You gotta have a more nuanced, poke fun at black people in order for niggas to be like, in order for niggas to not be like, do better. And I think that, and the last part I'll say about this, and before I pass it to you, Toy, is this, and this is where I think we where Dave Chappelle kind of ran into some issues, right? Because it was a question of execution.
Absolutely.
Dave Chappelle has been known to make the types of jokes that kind of get under people's skin. Reparations, black white supremacists, I know black people game show. All of these things were made to poke fun at racism, right? But it was executed.
It was smart,
perfectly. When the trans jokes,
bar.
They was kind of lazy. You feel me? They wasn't executed in a way to where it was like, oh, that's smart. I may disagree about like the framing, and I may feel a way about the stereotype that's being deployed, but the execution, the punchline is smart. You feel me?
Yeah.
And niggas like Kenya Burris is like, blackish ain't enough, bro. Just calling your shit black as fuck ain't enough, bro. It has to be better.
And to me, I think when I'm hearing him say his criticism about, yes, most definitely, it's like, it sounds like you don't want to be criticized as a black man by your own people based off of how we do your shit. Because I feel like at a certain point in time when you watching Blackish, and for the record, I like Blackish, I watched it. But at a certain point in the show, I recognize the show was made for the centering of white entertainment and white consumption, and not for black people. It was to explain and make intelligible or make intelligible the blackish experience for white people. You feel me? And even a lot of the things that it was trying to hit home, it became clear that it was like, okay, that was a little jewel you dropped for the white folks. That was, you know what I'm saying? It was like, okay, this show is made for the consumption, entertainment of white people because you want your show to be, okay, I get it. You feel what I'm saying? So what we doing here, Kenya?
Yeah. Before I comment, I want to make sure I shout out some long lost family members that have made their way back home. Vance in the comments, Ethereal in the comments, Nico in the comments. Shout out to all y'all for showing up at the reunion. You know, it's great to see y'all. I definitely, I think Dominique. You see, I called you by your real name because you're playing games. I know y'all heard that phone in the background. I'm not playing games no more. I'm sick of the shit. But in terms of the question was, does wokeness come at the expense of creativity? Yeah. Was that basically the question?
Yes.
I think you can have both, but I think Fire Trainer 92 had kind of talked about this, is that it's hard. You know what I'm saying? Like, inclusiveness is hard. True equity is hard. Inclusiveness is a difficult thing, and that I kind of like it, because anybody and everybody, especially in the era of social media, gets to be a comedian. Everybody gets to be an entertainer. Everybody gets to have, as long as you got a platform and you got viewers, you get to be seen as a legitimate contribution to the culture or to the direction of things. And I think there is just a higher penchant for you to be able to say that you about that shit. And so I think that creativity is not lost, but I think the people who will be deemed as good, as successful at their craft, as people who would be paying attention to who's up next, they're going to be the ones who are able to navigate that more effectively. So it depends on whose bag you want. If you're willing to get the low-hanging fruit and you just want the quick, you know what I'm saying, kind of cringy laugh or the cringy content, or, you know what I'm saying, the stuff that people are willing to go get it. But as time moves forward, less of that money is going to be available. More people are critically and socially conscious, and now more people they want to be in conversations with people where they sound like they are hip and, moving in the right direction and who are woke, right? They don't want to seem like they are archaic in how they understand the world around them. So there's just a lot of incentive for people to want to find, take in, and participate and better creativity, which means being more inclusive and being good at it.
I think though, again, where we missed the point is that sometimes like sometimes like that sting that you feel mean that it was like it came across the way that it needed to, right? But that's why I say it is about execution, because in order for that, like where we see the most creativity is being able to take something difficult to discuss. And we got to remember the reason why 90s jokes was full of like jokes about race, because niggas could finally make those types of jokes not under the threat of actually being killed. Right. And no longer we don't gotta kind of like peep around no more. We can say white folk, yeah. We couldn't say white folk like that in the 70s and 80s. Absolutely. That shit wasn't.
We could just sit up and talk about white people all day. That wasn't a thing.
Right. And so now, like in the 90s, they could say, man, black people do this and white people do this. And we could laugh at it because there was a transition, you know what I'm saying, in our society. So
I want to turn it over to y'all to get into some of these comments, because there's definitely some stuff rolling over here.
Yeah. No, yeah. My fear is that she said my fear is that inclusiveness morphs into assimilation, like post civil rights. Lee,
I would say that that's a legitimate fear. Not only is it a legitimate fear, I believe that's what Kenya Burris and Charlamagne the God was already kind of tiptoeing their way to. Because after a certain point, we recognized that the post-civil rights movements led to just like we have to be accepted and integrate any damn thing, even if it's bad, and we shouldn't question it because we have to be accepted in anything. You feel me? I feel like a lot of what Kenya Burris and Charlamagne the God was coming to is like, I feel like that was speaking from their elite positions of being a part of entertainment, and then being able to say, damn, niggas, we done fought so hard to finally get access. Y'all should take whatever product we give to y'all and not criticize it. That's how I took it.
I mean, I think the same criticism I have of politics, though, is the same thing I have about art and media and content. And it's that if you want to get to the upper echelons of it, there's going to have to be some compromising. There's going to have to be some shit you can't be overly woke about. It's going to be some shit in the cutting room that's not going to leave the cutting room and make it to whatever screen, the big one or the small one, if you attempt to be overly conscious about this, because they're going to be like, well, white people aren't ready for that conversation, or that could be a little bit abrasive, or that could be seen as this. Ugly truths are ugly truths. And so I feel like, you know, a lot of people who create content, create media like that are trying to come up, that are trying to be those black producers or those black leads that are getting those roles, have to decide. Do you love your craft for the sake of loving your craft? Because you're going to be in more low budget shit. You're not going to have as many opportunities. You're not going to get the platforms. You're not going to get the opportunities. Or are you in love with what comes with the craft? And not only are you passionate about acting or about singing or about doing whatever you do, but you want to live in a nice house, and you want to rub these types of shoulders, and you want to be on Jimmy Kimmel or Jimmy Fallon. If you want those things, then automatically some of that woke shit you're going to have to kind of navigate, right? And it's going to have to come at the expense of some of your creativity, because they don't want that. Right, that's always gonna be the final filter.
Until my follow-up question, both of y'all, tell what you just said though. But acknowledging that everything you said pretty much, hey, it is what it is. Well, what does it mean for Charlamagne the God and Kenya Burris, two people that has black influence and influence in the black community, evoke the concept of the woke police?
Yeah, and see, this is the issue.
Woke police to me is like that creates impacts for niggas like us, because we gonna be seen as the woke police. So it's like, to me, what does it mean for them to legitimize that concept?
I mean, this is where we kind of struggle with certain niggas with money and certain niggas with influence, right? The whole that is a conservative concept. Woke police. That is a white male conservative talking point. There are no woke police. There are just more people who are willing to who are unwilling to accept what has been accepted in the past. So the fact that they would even deploy that language, it shows you that there's a detachment. And with Kenya Burris, you can see that detachment in his art, in Blackish. I think a lot of black people specifically was put off by the term Blackish.
Yeah, that's why I never got into it. I was like, I don't feel like that's for me.
Yeah.
Right. And then even like how you were saying, George, there was a sense of like, for example, the episode that actually made me stop watching Blackish was that Dre was trying to get his kids to understand the importance of his upbringing and his past. But the like, I guess you would say the moral of the episode was that no, you're in a better place in your life. You need to let those things go.
Mm-hmm.
Fuck no.
Right.
The fuck, I mean, I don't care what suburb we in. But hey, Huey, we got to hop on this plane. We going to you gonna see, you know what I'm saying, like how we got here.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? It's because I think they was poking. He wanted. They had on like dashikis and shit in the back in his backyard, and he was trying to get him to, you know, like do all type of just weird stereotypical Pan-African shit. And it was like, bro, like it's like you bastardizing like a real desire that people in the suburb have to make sure that their family is attached to certain key black shit, because in the suburbs you don't get that.
Yeah.
So to me, it was already a detachment, and somebody like Kenya Burris' understanding of what it means to display blackness on television, right? And so I feel like with that nigga specifically, him and Charlemagne having that conversation, I really don't expect anything less. Like, I'm not surprised that it came from two niggas like that.
See, I hold Charlemagne so high. I hold Charlemagne so high level in 2022. I expected more Charlemagne in 2022.
And that's when you fucked up.
Yeah,
that's when you fucked up. Yeah. Because the last thing I say is Black as Fuck was corny as fuck. Like, it was corny as hell. Like, it just, Black as Fuck it didn't feel black as fuck. It was just a nigga with money acting like a nigga.
Last question then. Before you I can tell you starting to edge out. Hey, this last question then. Is it hypocritical for Kenya Burris, a progressive producer, writer, to talk shit about being woke?
I think it's confusing, because like it seems very counterintuitive to what you're actually doing and what you're producing. And I think that is where it becomes very dangerous. I think because it gives conflicting messages for people who are taking in your media, for people who maybe are trying to find themselves, to find representation, to find a voice in media, right? It would seem like that those are progressive gestures that they're doing to try to be better. But if you don't want to own up to that title, can't nobody make you. But it also makes it very dangerous for you to be trying to put out this content that becomes a compass or a guide for what Black culture looks like for Black people who are trying to align with it, or for white people who are trying to learn better about it. So you're very dangerous. I think there's a lot of insidiousness at that.
Kenya Burris is not progressive, bro. I think at one point diversity was a progressive thing, because me and George was going back and forth about this, and at first I was like, okay, I think he got me. Diversity is I don't think diversity is progressive anymore. I don't think inclusion is not progressive anymore, because the issue becomes, what is that present significant? What does it mean to have a Black show if it's not if it's Blackish? You know what I'm saying? Like, to me, what that's doing, what Kenya Burris represents, is more of that moderate understanding of what like being included means assimilating. Assimilation is not progressive at all. Displaying like a suburban family and all that, that's not progressive at all. Actually, statistics show a nigga like Dre is more likely to vote conservative. You know what I'm saying? Than anything else. So it's like, I feel like
this is all true. This is all. I ain't got no rebuttal right now. Right now, I'm thinking my rebuttal. So give me time.
Yeah, well, one of the things as we talk about this that I think about in terms of, is Kenya Burris progressive, or should he be seen as progressive? And I think when I think about this, and we were talking about it earlier, and it makes me think about hip hop artists like rappers, right? Like, they don't want to be like cultural ambassadors. They don't want to be role models, right? A lot of hip hop artists have come out and been like, I don't want to be the framework or the index for what this shit looks like, or how you should be, or what you should be doing. I just want to be a nigga up here telling stories. I just want the chance to have a platform to do some Black shit, to, in my Black ass body, come up and be a part of a culture and be a product. And if people rock with my shit, they rock with my shit. And I think the same thing is true for Kenya Burris. I don't think that he has an agenda of progressiveness. I don't think he has an agenda of wokeness. He's not trying to be the compass or the framework or the index for what it looks like for progressive Blackness. He just want to do some Black shit. He just want to be in, you know what I'm saying? I think in the scene as contextually a person who produces Black media. And so to have that expectation or that standard on him to be progressive, I think is our fault. You know what I'm saying? Because we never asked him. You know what I'm saying? The same way these rappers. I mean, and the second part of this is that, you know, you don't ask for these titles. You don't ask to be progressive, but when you have power, to whom much is given, much is required. Right. The same thing we look at rappers and say, you don't ask to be a role model, my nigga, but you in the front seat. You in all the cameras, you in all the pictures, you in all the videos. So you do have responsibility for you know, that level of how you engage with your audience. And so it's weird. But when I look at this question of whether or not he's progressive, I think we got to ask him, because I don't think that's what he's trying to do or be.
Hey, and you know what? Can I? And I want to answer. I want to answer Charlamagne's question, if you don't mind, George.
Definitely.
I guess to the last part. And is wokeness ruining creativity in Hollywood? Yes.
Oh yeah, because we got another part of the conversation to talk about too. Yeah.
Yeah, but I'm only just gonna stick to the two though. We're just gonna get to two. But yeah, it's not ruining the creativity. This part, yeah. It's not ruining creativity in Hollywood, but it's ruining Hollywood for the better. Hollywood is not creative. Like, let's be real here. The issue that we have with Hollywood is that they make the same fucking stories over and over again. Especially when it comes to black people. I'm tired of slave movies. It's not that it's like, oh, well, that people felt like it was trauma porn. We've had enough. What's even more frustrating is that it takes somebody like what's the white man name that did Django?
Quentin Tarantino.
Quentin Tarantino. Yeah. Quentin Tarantino. It take a white man like Quentin Tarantino to flip the lid on how we even to conceptualize what a slave movie is, right?
Yeah.
We still we still going and seeing 12 Years a Slave. We still going and seeing all this other shit. So for me, I think the reality is Hollywood isn't creative. They tell the same stories, and they only put out what makes motherfuckers comfortable. They don't put out shit that they don't put out shit that kind of shake up people mentally, spiritually.
I think because you stole my five from my other what you call. I think I just want to debate you on here and say semantics. I disagree with you. Because wokeness is exposing the lack of creativity in Hollywood, and it's not ruining the creativity of Hollywood.
But it was already exposed, bro. Robert Townsend made the movie Hollywood Shuffle in the 80s. Nigga, it's 2020. It didn't take we weren't even using woke when Robert Townsend was pointing out, hey, they fucking us in Hollywood.
I have no idea what you even referenced, so you went over my head. So
we'll talk about it later. Go ahead.
You just screwed me over on my conscious shot. But it's cool.
For the sake of the thumbnail, I do want to make sure we talk about this whole notion of wokeness and Viola Davis. And not only Viola Davis and what's been happening with the Woman King, but also what we're looking at replicating, or the conversation we're looking at replicating when Wakanda, what is it called? Black Panther 2 comes out.
Black Panther, yeah. Right.
So in the fold of this whole wokeness conversation, first of all, I saw Woman King this past weekend. I don't know how many of y'all in the chat saw Woman King, but if you saw it, I want y'all to tap in. Let me know whether you've seen it or not. Up to this point, have y'all seen it? Lee and Plug?
I haven't.
Okay. I don't plan on it. Yeah, we good.
You don't plan on it. Is there a reason you don't plan on seeing the Woman King outside of you just being you?
Y'all know I don't watch movies like that.
Okay, got it. I didn't know if there was a reason or if you were just being the plug, but sure.
Yeah, I'm being me. Yeah.
He's being For me, I plan on watching it, but I haven't watched it yet.
Okay. So I liked it, even though after, and I like the fact that I got to watch it first. Lion time, baby, slow down. Good, really, slow down. Bring it back in. Just bring it back in a little bit. I watched it, and I'm glad that I got to watch it before I read all the criticisms of it. I feel like I ruined and spoiled my perspective on things, and sometimes I get turned off of shit because I read everybody else's think pieces about it and be like, man, I don't want to go see that shit for myself, and then I just don't go see it. But I'm glad I saw it first and then was able to be reflective about my experience later on, because I thought it was cool. I thought it was a good movie. I walked away feeling good, rated it a 9 out of 10. You know what I'm saying? Like, really feeling good about things. And then I came across this thread on Twitter. Marius Cother says, I really wanted to like The Woman King, but its representation of African women's history is utterly disappointing. The depiction of the Agoji as the singular exception in a culture where all other women were oppressed and agencyless doesn't make sense and is also untrue. She continues by saying the Agoji did not exist in a cultural or historical vacuum. For a film that supposedly centers African women's agency, The Woman King fails to grasp the nuance of gender and power in the Dahomey and other African societies. They absolutely could have done better. 2 more tweets from this thread, and then I want to turn it over to y'all. And Paula follows up and says, I think we need to steer clear of expecting historical accuracy from movies meant for entertainment. Documentaries and textbooks are better for that. Then the last person follows up and says, and this is Menace to Anxiety, follows up and says, where's the line though? I feel like this argument wouldn't work if we replaced Dahomey with, say, the Confederate Army. If a film with the biggest budget, actors, and team told an entertaining story where the Confederate Army were hero breakers of slave chains, we'd be livid, right? So I am interested in kind of your perspective of
that's a good idea.
Really, which is I want to ask this question. Do you all think we need to steer clear? Shout out to my queers. Do you all think we need to steer clear of expecting historical accuracy from movies meant for entertainment? Do you think the documentaries and textbooks are better for that, or do you think the movies and the entertainment we take in, i.e., Woman King, i.e., Black Panther, that has various representations of African culture and different African accents, they were criticized because the accents weren't consistent and all this and all that. Do you think we should be looking to these movies for that, or do you think we should be entertained by these things? That's my first question. Answer that, and then I'll follow up.
Shit, to me, I feel like you gotta create that line. I think that we gotta figure out, have a conversation on where we're gonna draw the line, because we are coming to this conversation as academics and philosophers, being able to create the distinctions between documentaries and movies. A lot of the common folk that we try to, educate on an everyday basis or be in the classrooms, they don't see a lot of those rigid lines between documentaries and movies. You see what I'm saying? So for me, it's really thinking about a lot of the tall tales, a lot of the social norms, a lot of the common understandings, how they derive from movies, and how movies that are based on true stories, how many people don't know, you feel me, how Hollywood play with them stories. So I think going to that last tweet is like, what would it mean for Hollywood to play with the Confederacy story and valorize
Infinite Link in the building
just for the sake of entertainment? You see what I'm saying? And I feel like that's going back to the last conversation we just had. In many different instances, I would argue that Netflix didn't really have no noble idea at all behind making this shit. This shit was for entertainment, being able to capture the attention of us, to keep us on a streaming app, to give them some, some money. You feel what I'm saying? So for me, it's just like having that conversation. I know it's gonna be difficult. I know it's gonna be hard. We're gonna disagree, but let's go and have a conversation on where we're gonna draw the line at, because a line needs to be had, goddamn.
Okay, because I gotta plug. I'm gonna let you go, and then I gotta follow up on this because y'all are saying.
Yeah. No, I want you to. Because this is my thing. Like when it comes to like what I engage with in popular culture, like for example, I don't watch interviews. Like I don't watch like when J. Cole. Y'all know that's my nigga. I don't watch J. Cole interviews. Because I don't really care, like him as a person, like I fuck with, like just because it's art, but like I don't really care about all that.
Okay.
Let me listen to the album. Like because the distinction is the art and the individual. The individual it's a person, it's a human. I can have fault with them, whatever. The art is the art. You know what I'm saying? And so I think that what we gotta recognize is that distinction is extremely important, because they're not making a movie to entertain or to inform you as much as the movie is to entertain you. So if you can get some good source material and make it entertaining, more entertaining than it was from what it was, that's the point of a dramatization. Right? It's supposed to be something that's more focused on entertaining as opposed to educating. And but I think what happened, the last part I say is, because the second part to that is if you know that something is if you know that something is historical, the onus is on you to then go back and inform yourself on what actually took place. I do that with everything. Like if there is something that's like, ever since Pocahontas, ever since I seen the movie Pocahontas, I don't trust shit. You know what I mean? Once I found out that she didn't even end up with John Smith, and she ended up with some white man named John Locke, and John Smith was on some other shit anyway. He wasn't the valiant. Then it was like, years old. Yeah, at that age, I was like, okay, movie, real life. Movie person based off of real life ain't shit to do with real life. Got it. that distinction was created for me ever since then.
So, okay, Nico brings up an important or an interesting statement. If you want to get knowledge, go see it out, not be lazy and watch a film. And so I think that kind of puts the onus on people who take in entertainment, right? Like, I think that kind of plug what you were getting at and what I see with Nico's comment is like, yeah, we can understand that things are based in history or on history, but you need to have, like, just be prepared to go to the movies and be misled. Like, instead, walk away. I'll tell you how they used to tell me in church. Don't take my word for it. You go read the Bible by yourself. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm going to give you a sermon. I'm going to preach to you a little bit, but you don't have to believe me. You go read it. You go do your own research. That is how you walk away, kind of having walked away with what you need to have from that introduction to what the word might say, or introduction into what the history books might say.
I agree with y'all saying. I agree with y'all saying. I just don't have that much faith that people are gonna be able to want to do that work and or go in consciously like, I know I'm gonna be misled for this movie because these Hollywood writers gonna write for entertainment, not for accuracy. So I know that.
And a lot of people, I like these comments. Vance says the fact that the Dahomey were actually raiding other African tribes, suppressing them, and supplied them with up to 20% of the total amount of slaves in the transatlantic slave trade. We can't just ignore that for entertainment's sake. And that's one of the things I didn't appreciate about the movie. But the movie was 2.5 hours long. So I wanted them to get into some of, the role that Africans played in the transatlantic slave trade. I wanted them to get more into how they were part of the commerce. Like, there were literally deals being made with colonizers coming from England, and they were sitting up there and bartering and making it. And it's just like, I'm watching it. Part of me is like, dang, okay, the script, they making deals. But the other side this is black people looked at as cargo. They're people that they are, negotiating and making deals about. And then also, they humanized colonizers in this movie. You know what I'm saying? So I was like uncomfortable. Like, I don't give a shit about, of course they had to create a love interest. I was very happy that when it's all said and done, I don't want to give away too many teasers, that the love interest was like some flirting shit, but it was definitely between a colonizer. He was mixed. He said his mother was Dahomey. His father was, I guess, English, Spanish.
Light skin nigga.
Yeah. And then he comes back and whatever. And so there's a love story.
Spoiler alert.
There. And I mean, like, so, but I hated that had to be a part of it. Cause like, who gives a shit? You know what I'm saying? But for the sake of cinematics, I knew that I shouldn't be distracted by that. And instead I should walk away knowing that there were African women warriors who did some cool shit that we just didn't know a whole lot about. And that I should probably go read up on them and see, some of the facts. But I never walked away like, I have the full, story of what happened with the Agoji people. So like, I guess I want to ask this question because it's entertainment, and in other areas of entertainment and other forms of, like, for example, music, we allow samples. We allow for you to take the general baseline, the general framework, and then from there, what you do with that shit is what you do with that shit. So is it dangerous to have that same standard for film, and why? Like, why do we not give people the same poetic license to go and take something and adapt it in ways that they feel like is relevant and necessary?
I feel like the danger is you really don't. You know what I'm saying? We got niggas right now being charged with RICOs because it's shit they said in the rap song. And two, I know we had chop up conversations about uniquely music being slave catcher music. You know what I'm saying? Or we talk uniquely about how the impacts of hip hop music has on, you feel me, social death, and how we value each other's lives, how we spin the block, and how shit. Dahmer just got done making the point about, hey, we can't get mad at them how they do Jeffrey Dahmer, and we do this, that, and the other. A lot of that is done by entertainment. You know what I'm saying? A lot of that is done by movies and rap music and music videos. You know what I'm saying? So it's like shit. I
want to give an example I have of this that's really interesting. I also just want to plug this because I plan on watching it. Is Mickey Mouse, the Mickey Mouse law? Who I forget, but it's basically a law that allows for you to like retain your poetic license or access to whatever art you make. And I think this might just be for animation, but it might go into other.
Only apply to Mickey Mouse though. I think I know.
I don't know because I don't know. Either way it goes. Here's what's interesting to me, right? So they've been able to box people out of using the Mickey Mouse character through this law, but one character who has not existed up under this and most recently is being readapted is Winnie the Pooh. I don't know if y'all seen on Twitter, but it's a whole Winnie the Pooh horror movie coming out. Like, it's literally Winnie about to be on some horror.
See, I read how they did that though. How they did that though was Disney didn't own Winnie the Pooh because technically Disney was remaking somebody else's story. And as long as this thing right here doesn't introduce Tigger, Tigger is a character uniquely made by Disney. So the Mickey Mouse law has to do with there was a law that was about, you know what I'm saying, fair usage. They said after a certain amount of time, anybody's able to use this particular thing. Well, Disney was able to, you know what I'm saying, lobby and spend a whole bunch of money. They say in the 90s, or I think it was in the 90s, it's going to come up in 4 years, but they got a law to make it where we get to protect our entity because we still use this. Yeah. And now, you feel me, people are worried that this little Winnie the Pooh shit has caused like a little gray area in the law because of X, Y, and Z. But when you do your little shit on this, like, nah, y'all don't really own this. But the hypocrisy of the Disney Mickey Mouse law is that what Disney created a law to protect their brand is their entire brand is built off of stealing other people's shit. Yeah. No story they tell is originally there. They always
Cinderella, Snow White.
They're trying to protect legally and making sure nobody can do that to them. That's wild.
I ain't finna even say this coming out loud, but Ethereal Beauty in the comments cutting up. And been dropping some fire comments too. I've been kind of reading through and kind of trying to keep up with the thread. I'm just glad you're back in the mix, definitely. I want to...
What? Whoa.
Interesting business. Cutting up in the chat. But what I want to do is talk about Nico's comment real quick, and I want to round out what I'm saying. I think talking about Nico and what Nico says. Nico says this is not a popular opinion, but I think we as a people should stop nitpicking one another. And this is where I get to kind of looking at Black Panther 2 and Black Panther 1, right? We know that Wakanda is a fictional place. It's not real, but it is an amalgamation of different representations of African culture, right? And there's a clear connection to the continent. It's not like Wakanda is on another planet. They say that these are, descendants of Africa. And then we also see with the Woman King that there are historical inaccuracies and issues. People have problems with their accents, with the misrepresentation of storytelling, all of that. So my question is, should we be, because everybody's like, I don't want no more slave movies. I'm sick of watching the same narration. I'm sick of watching the same struggle and strife and this, like that, and the other. Is it not good or better that we're making new stories, that we're telling new stories, that we're shedding new light on Black experiences, that we're kind of mixing up the content? Or would you all rather have the historical accuracy of slave stories and stories about, I think we got what's the young man? Emmett Till movie coming out. Like, do y'all want more of that type of imagery? Or do we want the creativity and the non-typical stories that could be inaccurate, but are still better than
all of that, baby? I'm on all of that.
Yeah, I think the reality is people gonna make what the fuck they want to make, and the people that like it gonna like it, and the people that's not gonna like it not gonna like it. Like Agreed. It really there's no real threshold by how much somebody, because if it's good, it's good. If it's bad, it's bad. At the end of the day, you know what I mean? And a lot of people, even with a lot of the criticism, like you said, it was like, Woman King's actually cool, right? Like I think the criticism, but it's actually cool. You feel me? The movie, like the story in and of itself is a cool story. There's some historical implications that were ignored, which is problematic, but at the end of the day, it's a cool story. I think what Black people have had to do is really kind of be able to parse through certain things when it comes to entertainment. Because if we wanted to, we could tear down every fucking thing that come out based on like how stories are told. So I think that outrage is always going to exist, but it's the good thing about it. Like it's if you mad about something and you want to write, and it's people that you know what I'm saying, you don't want to feel like you mad about it by yourself. I guarantee you're not mad about it by yourself, and that's a good.
And how I think about it is we need a combination of all the things. But what I would say to that question specifically is I think that this sentiment is more popular than I feel like the person that left the comment realized. But I hate the criticism. The idea that we shouldn't be nitpicking with each other, or the idea of infight and all that, to me, it usually comes at the expense of other people in our community that we already agreed was exposable and disposable. So to me, it's like shit. Just like I felt with Kenya Burris, it's like, hey, fam, peep game. White folks criticize each other too, my nigga. They nitpick each other as well. You feel me? A lot of the conflicts that we get our Black asses in is really conflicts amongst white people. So the idea that because Black people fight with each other or we disagree on these things, so we have conflicts, the reason why we can't get ahead, I think it's a very pathological understanding of humans, and it comes with anti-Black sentiments. You feel me? Like I see somebody in the quotes, somebody in the comments, and I know it was a joke, but it's like my sign said we fought each other even in Black Panther, we fought each other.
You know what I'm saying? And we're kind of each other. It's like, listen, man, in terms of proximity, in terms of human conflict, I happen to have a master's degree in human relations. We're going to have conflict. We're going to have conflict. You know what I'm saying? So this little utopia people be having, or this idea that says that in order for Black people to come up, we cannot criticize each other. We can't have systems of accountability or responsibility. I can't call you out for being fatphobic or texturist or colorist.
Right.
Or to me, that's wild. And to me, most of the times people start talking about nitpicking or start talking about infighting or start talking about Black folks getting in the way of each other. It's literally like, man, you trying to divide and conquer. And it's like the same shit that 21, 19, 20-year-old George used to say when I was doing college debate. When Black women came to me talking about the shit that Black men do, I would say, man, you trying to divide and conquer, baby.
Yeah.
You know, it comes like you have to hear it.
Because it comes at the expense, like what you were saying. Well, the important part that can't be missed is that calling into question, nitpicking, comes at the expense of a traditionally discarded, ignored, traditionally oppressed group speaking out against that traditional oppression. Like, nah, y'all can't be. Yes, the fuck we can, bro. Like that's valid. It's relevant, and even though there are other things that should be discussed right now, like this is a criticism that is relevant. Do I enjoy the movie? Respect the criticism, though.
Yeah,
two things can be true at the same time.
Yeah, I think we are. Sorry, Plug. What was you about to say?
Respect.
Oh no, I mean I didn't know if y'all had anything else because we was going to transition into the last part just so we can. But y'all go ahead.
I think a couple comments I want to talk about and then we'll be done and I'll be quick with that. But I forgot what I was about to say. I thought I lost my train of thought. Let's look. Couple comments I want to highlight. I think Yasmin says, I think each type of content serves a different purpose and we should judge it based on its application. So like context matters. You know what I'm saying? And being mindful of how things are being deployed and how they exist are important too. Javion says a combination of it all. So we need a little bit of everything. I'm looking for Infinite Blink's comment.
Infinite Blank.
It was one that said, I think basically the idea, look where it is. Woman King claims a certain level of historical accuracy and Black Panther is non-fiction. And this could be true, but you say a certain level. And I think, what is that level? Right? Like, what is that level of historical accuracy? I think they talk about people from a certain place. I think they evoke some names and some tribes, but I don't know that there is a high commitment to making sure it is historically accurate from beginning to end. Another thing that's important to note about The Woman King, if I'm not mistaken, is that it's also produced by white women, which also complicates how stories end up being told and how we look at, women in their position in certain movements. So that's something interesting to think about. Autumn says, I think if continued, they should base them off of historical events to educate the masses, but random made up stories feel like trauma porn most times. So I think that does give a weird opportunity, you know what I'm saying, to kind of put and gallivant some of the worst parts of people's experiences and be, here's one of our favorite words, gratuitous about what it looks like. We saw that. And I don't know if this is an effective overlap or not, but even in Django, we saw the bloodlust, right? We saw kind of how much was a part of that process, and some of us question whether or not we needed all of that to get the point. So it was trauma porn in that way. Woman King is basically the African 300. I don't have time, but I do kind of agree with that.
It's funny as hell. That's why it's funny.
The battle scenes were lit. It was lit. You know what I'm saying? I can't even front. So for a lot of those cinematic purposes, it was great. All right, a lot of other great comments, a lot of great feedback as usual. Y'all are awesome for kind of tapping in with us. But I'll turn it over to the plug to do whatever else we need to do.
So we just got one more story that we're gonna close it out on. Just again to stay true to the chopping block. Stacey Abrams. There was a story that came out this week about Stacey Abrams possibly not receiving the right support or the same amount of support that she needs or she should be receiving from Black men specifically. She held a campaign event where she talked specifically to Black men. And she made the statement that, like, with the help of Black men, I'll become the next governor of Georgia, right? Mm-hmm. And so, an article came out, picked up by Fox News, that kind of pointed out how you don't see in certain polls, you don't see the same level of support amongst Black men with Stacey Abrams that you see traditionally with Black people as a whole. So the question that I want to ask y'all is there a issue with Black men specifically in this case supporting Stacey Abrams or Black women in politics? And if so, if you believe that that exists, where does that stem from?
I think it does exist. And I think the greatest example of this, and maybe not this directly, but Black men being out of touch with the direction we all kind of need to go in is when we saw how many of them voted for Donald Trump, right? Compared to a lot of the other numbers. So like, no, Donald Trump is not a Black woman, right? But I think what that demonstrates is that Black men are still latch on to various parts of conservatism, various kind of tentacles of shit that does not attend to the needs of their own communities. I think that they are comfortable aligning themselves in big enough numbers with shit that does not mutually beneficial for them and their counterparts. And so that was my first kind of glimpse into the weird, tricky ass math that Black men can be doing when we start thinking about what is politically viable and necessary to move forward and make productive decisions. If that makes sense.
I think that uniquely in the pandemic, we've seen the proliferation of manosphere content of Kevin Samuelites and Andrew Taters, and I believe, and I would be willing to argue that was for the Black community an alt-right pipeline that sucked in a lot of Black men. I believe that a lot of Black men that be on that, you know what I'm saying, type of content, that be on that type of bullshit, slowly but surely express their conservative values, and it literally starts to justify a conservative ballot and or being against the Democratic plantation because you believe a lot of the things that white men believe in terms of the family, in terms of religion, in terms of, you feel me, reproduction, in terms of, you feel me, abortion, in terms of LGBTQ, in terms of saying gay. So it's like, to me, I see it as like, yes, there's an issue, and that issue to me comes from the normalization and the trendiness of just like white man conservative values being put in blackface, high value men talk.
Yeah, I think I agree with the two of y'all. I think this is and I think we would all agree that the proper phrase to use in the lens that Black men, I hate niggas. Here on out, that's the phrase I'm gonna use, okay? Because like we know what we're talking about. Because the Fox News article and everything else pissed me off, and I feel like when we say black men, it's like, yeah, I hate that dialogue. Where niggas fuck up is what Bell Hooks calls plantation patriarchy.
Mm-hmm.
Right? It's the things that we desire, the things that where we see power proliferate.
Quick question: what's wrong with being pro-family? Nothing's wrong with being pro-family. There is a lot wrong with pro a particular type of family. Black people have had familial units and had them be very elaborate and dynamic over time. It is a certain type of family that we know they're looking for. I'm sorry to plug.
No. I get right, because the issue is like, let's not act like when somebody say pro-family that it's not a certain type of, that's pro-nuclear family. So when we criticize the idea of being pro-family, it also has to do with how families like blended families, mixed families, niggas being raised by their grandma, niggas living with their mama, their grandma, no father, living.
And by the way, Black people stop being scared of two mamas and two daddies. That exists too. Like, it's
right, I was about to say, you know what I'm saying? Like,
got a whole conversation about it.
Right. So let's not act like pro-family isn't coded for white nuclear family, one mother, one father, and kids. Like, stop. But the issue that we run into though is it's not the way that the article try to make it sound like it's a problem with Stacey Abrams. But like what Toya pointed out, it's actually a problem with Black men consistently voting conservative higher and higher rates than Black women. Right. Mm-hmm. We Toya pointed out, hella Black men voted for Donald Trump. Hella Black men are trying to fuck with even not even Black men. Herschel Walker over Raphael Warnock. So it's not a, let me not say it's not a women issue, because when adopting that perspective creates women issues, right? Mm-hmm. But it's more the larger issue stems from what niggas thinking that mimicking conservative whites is how we hold on to or display any type of Black male power. Exactly. But it's actually antithetical to who we are. So, you know what I'm saying? Great questions on all of that. The last story, because this is just a quick snapshot, and the way that y'all answered it was pretty succinct. Great. Thank y'all. The last story I want to talk about is last week we talked about Donald Trump being held accountable by Letitia James as it pertains to her suing him, Trump Foundation, and his kids for fraud and all that type of shit, right?
Mm-hmm.
What came out in the news this week is Donald Trump is dealing with a criminal case as it pertains to classified documents. He requested a special master and was granted that special master by a judge that he appointed himself. However, the special master that he and his team requested has been no nonsense when it comes to the bullshit that they're trying to pull, as well as a appeals panel to push back against the judge attempting to change language in the special master agreement. A 3-judge panel, including 2 Trump appointees, pushed back and admonished the judge by telling her that the shit you trying to pull, we don't do.
Not gonna work. We see you.
No.
The justification for it is bullshit, right? And we recommend it be rectified. This is the appeals court. This is not only 2 Trump appointed judges, but also a Trump requested special master that's holding his feet to the fire. Now, the criticism that George laid out was that with Trump packing the courts, it was a higher chance that he wouldn't be held accountable for the things that he does because he would have an advantage on the courts. However, what we're seeing in this criminal case is that even Trump appointed judges are not going along with Trump's bullshit. Does this new information change how y'all feel about Trump being held accountable in his legal issues when we can see specifically his judges not letting him get away with bullshit?
I answer a question for Lee. He the one who y'all was up here hooping and hollering, all upset in the clip.
But I want to know from your perspective.
He's got the plug. He's doing this. He's got this. So I mean, Lee, based on new information, these court-appointed federal judges ain't going for the bullshit. Does that change your perception, or do you feel like just the operating system and environment for Trump to do his shit is just too far gone for any of that to matter?
Yeah, to me, I mean, I acknowledge it as being good. I ain't gonna just be all the way like petty and shit, but to me, it's just like, as a matter of fact, to me, I learned for this conversation, I'm using all shit I learned from the plug. Plug used to throw this concept around 3-4 years ago when we first started doing the chop up. Political theater. You know what I was gonna say? Political theater. I would say these federal judges, they're smart. They smart enough to know they can't just come outright and just show they finna let this motherfucker run rogue. So for me, in terms of optics and in terms of rules in the base, we can't just make it from the outside looking in. To me, it's just like we shall see.
Yeah. I mean, Blink. That's what Infinite Blink said. It sounds good. You know what I'm saying? The boss mommy said, no, this judge is an exception to the rule. It's not judges, right? We are looking at unique instances where we shouldn't get overly excited about any of the shit that these people are part of. Go ahead.
But to be clear, it is judges. The 11th Circuit Court of Appeals had a 3-judge panel rule on Trump's current criminal case. Yeah. 2 of the 3 judges on that panel were Trump appointees. The 3rd was an Obama appointee. It was unanimous in their decision to rule against Donald Trump.
I mean, so that's a momentum swing. But I'll tell you this, and I'll use an analogy to explain my position. I read a thread today that asked for people to give their most valuable financial advice. Like, what's your most valuable just financial tip? And one of the ones that I always operate by, me and the plug are literally in this position right now, is don't count money or don't spend money you don't have in your hand. Right? Don't even get excited about bread. It could be out there on the table. It could be existing in front of you, but don't get trapped up in that. Don't get excited and start spending money, giving. But I believe that's the same thing with this Trump issue. It's like, I don't believe it until I see the decision come down in courts. All of it sounds great. All of it sounds good, but I cannot cash in on optimism until I actually see some type of proof that there is some institution that is willing to hold this man accountable. So it's just hard to be optimistic, to be excited, to lean into this shit, regardless of what federal judges are doing and Trump appointed, Trump supporter, whatever. I don't know. Multiple Fire Trainer 92 says multiple Trump appointed judges have rendered decisions against Trump. They're not loyal to him, they're loyal Republicans. And this is where I was kind of thinking in the direction of, because there are just institutionalists who are sick of the parade and of the masquerade. And so they're excited and happy now that they're in positions of power to be able to turn the tides and to really show what the Republican, they want to be the heroes of the Republican Party. And while they might not do that by occupying a presidency or being in some big stick position from their bench, they're going to make sure to hold up some of those standards of what they feel like is the right way to do the Republican Party. And so I don't have faith in them per se, because I don't believe in the shit that they believe in, but I do believe that they are invested enough in their politics to maybe start making the types of decisions from the bench that hold that party accountable, or try to bring it back in line with how they feel like a court system is supposed to operate, which is much more neutral than it has been, even if, albeit, it doesn't really serve the interest of Black people, for example.
Melodious Ramblings, good morning, man. It's been a minute.
Good morning.
But
yeah, in my Kanye voice.
Yeah.
Good morning to you, the birds.
So what y'all thinking?
Yeah, with that, I think that's a great point to close it out on. So that was the last call, I guess. The quick snapshot. Y'all got anything y'all want to say to the people before we close this thing?
I do. As midterms get closer, as we start having more conversations, be ready for more political talk conversations. Be ready for us to be really looking under the microscope to see how the momentum, how the pendulum is swinging as we get into these midterms, as we look at some specific races in specific states, like in Georgia, as we ask questions about what's going on around the country. And y'all be paying attention to what's happening in y'all backyard too, so that y'all can be contributing to a lot of these discussions. One interesting thing that I'm seeing about these elections is that, we have debates, right? We've seen presidential debates on TV, but there are also local races where they have debates for state politics, for city politics, whatever. And on one side, a lot of people are asking the question, should we do away with debates as they concern politics? Liberals say they're not willing to freaking have debates with people who won't even admit to the results of the election. They're not willing to have debates with people who are election deniers or Trump champions. They don't want to deal with any of that shit. And on the other side, Republicans are saying, this woke culture, this kind of biased environment we exist in has already been set up to be against Republicans, a lot of their interests. So they're not even going to waste their breath debating with people, because there's just such a staunch rejection of Republican and conservative politics that it's just like, what's the point? So, that's one example of a lot of things we're paying attention to and watching as we get closer to these elections, as we move forward through a Biden presidency, right? He's making a lot of interesting decisions right now. So just know, we in that time of year where we're about to be political chopping it, and we want y'all to make sure y'all come and be a part of these conversations as well. That was my take.
Education is elevation.
With that being said,
I'm hungry. I'm hungry. I didn't stir it up thinking about what I'm gonna eat.
Yeah, hey, it is what it is. We appreciate y'all joining us on this Thursday. We will see y'all. We might see y'all again sometime
if y'all missed it, we went surprise live on Saturday and had a wonderful conversation about everything happening with Ime Udoka and the Celtics, what's happening with Robert Starver down there with the Phoenix Suns and the Mercury, as well as Brett Favre and his hashtag Welfare King, and what he's been doing with the money that he got from Mississippi. So y'all catch us.
Hey, and you seen that Matt Barnes said if the public find out, if it come out everything he said, he might not. I want to know what happened, man.
Yeah. I mean, it's a lot to see and keep track of, but we love y'all. LZ, you was dropping a bunch of great comments. We appreciate the love you showing. You said it's always great to see y'all youngins once again. Always gives me a tiny bit of hope for tomorrow. I appreciate being that hope. Y'all coming in and talking to us about it gives us hope too, that we are talking to the right people and got the right audience and have the right just set of conversations to really have some great feedback and some great breakdowns. Let me see. Like I said, we got Lion Time Baby in here cutting up on a regular basis. I need you to chill next show. Much love to you. Appreciate that. Who else? The Boss Mommy, Melodious Ramblings, and Creep back in here. Nico came back. We got Vance back. We got a third Beauty back. It's just a beautiful situation. Fire Trainer was dropping some fire comments. Like, I just want to make sure I shout y'all out specifically. If you listening on Apple Podcasts, on Spotify, come be a part of the live experiences. We want your comments in real time too. So make sure y'all tap in with us and watch the show on Thursday nights, as well as turn on your notifications so you see when we going live any other time. Anything else?
Nah, we need to get this nigga George fed. So with that being said, we're gonna end the show the way we start the show.
In the city, we gonna slide. In the city, we gon' slide, bet I be there pronto. Me, my guys, we really live. Lord, forgive me, pay my tithes. Please don't have me reach inside, and that's in the console. Keep the semi when I ride, lit off Henny when I drive.